Good afternoon, Coastal Explorers here, and we are in the heart of Cebu City in the Philippines. And today we're going to be taking a walking tour around this very old city. Now, there's been a city here since the 1500s, but indigenous people have lived here for thousands and thousands of years. But it was the Spanish who first came here in 1521 with the explorer Ferdinand Magellan. The first stop today is going to be the San Pedro fort. Let's go in, take a look. Okay, just inside the gates is this well, and as you know on Coastal Explorers, the main thing in order for a fort to survive is a water supply, and this was it. Built in the mid-1500s, this was the well that gave water to all the people inside. Right, and now it's a wishing well, so I've got a 5 peso coin, just throw it in, make a wish. Let's hope it comes true. So this is a triangular fort and it's got 3 bastions on each point. But why build a fort in a triangular shape? Here's 4 reasons why. Number 1, the triangular shape of the fort allows for better coverage of defensive fire from multiple angles. This shape minimises blind spots, provides a more comprehensive field of fire, making it difficult for attackers to find safe positions from which to launch an assault. Number 2, the triangular layout facilitates enfilading fire, which means that defenders can fire along the length of the enemy's attacking forces. This creates a deadly crossfire effect that can decimate advancing enemy troops. Number 3, triangular forts can adapt to various terrains and topographical features more effectively than square or rectangular forts. They can be built on uneven ground, hills and other challenging landscapes, while still providing strong defensive capabilities. And finally, number 4, the imposing and complex design of a triangular fort can have a psychological impact on potential attackers. The intricate design layout and formidable bastions can deter aggressors and make them think twice before launching an assault. Okay, so the Fort San Pedro was actually built in 1565 when the Spanish explorer Legazpi got here. It was originally a wooden fort and then it changed in 1738 to become a stone fort, and they used stone but also coral. So as you walk around the fort, you can actually see coral built into the sides of the walls. Fascinating, eh? So the fort here, San Pedro, has been used for many different things. In the early days, of course, it was used as a bastion, a fort for the Spanish, but it's also been used as a school, a hospital, a jail, and even was the zoo here in Cebu at one point. Who'd have thunk it? Okay, so brief history of the Philippines. Obviously, these islands have been lived in for tens of thousands of years, but it was really coming to light when in the 16th century, Magellan, who was actually Portuguese, came here in 1521. About 40 years later, 1565, the Spanish explorer Legazpi got here, created the first city here in Cebu, and then fast forward all the way to 1898. That's when the revolution happened, and after the Spanish-American War, this was transferred to the governance of America until World War II, when the Japanese actually took over the Philippines, and that's when the Japanese used this fort for the hospital. And it wasn't until 1946 that actually the Republic of the Philippines was formed. I find a lot of forts are actually better looking from outside. This one's a very, very small fort. In fact, it's the smallest fort here in the Philippines. And right outside, on one of the corners, is the man himself, Miguel Lopez de Legazpi. and he was here in 1565 and is now buried up in Manila, the capital of the Philippines. Get yourself down to the fort if you get a chance here in the centre of Cebu, and big thanks to Sherlyn, an intern here doing her tourism course. There are lots of interns around to take you around the fort, so get yourself down here to San Pedro Fort. Okay, so this is Antonio Pigafetta. He's actually an Italian man who accompanied Magellan on his trip in the 1520s. He was one man who actually made it back to Spain. Magellan died here, but he was the chronicler, sir. He followed Magellan everywhere, wrote everything down. He helped with translation into many different languages. So this statue, Antonio Pigafetta. Right across from the fort, we have this beautiful park and lots of different statues in here. One of them being this man here, Andres Bonifacio. Now, he was a revolutionary leader who in the 1890s led the revolution, ultimately led to his death in the late 1890s. But of course, revolution came later, so very much revered here. Amongst others, as we walk around the park, we should see a few others. Next up, we have one of the old presidents here. This is President Ramon Magsaysay. Let's find out a little bit more about him. President Magsaysay is best remembered for his exceptional leadership and commitment to good governance in the Philippines. He served as the 7th President of the Philippines from 1953 to 1957 and made significant contributions during his tenure. One of his most notable achievements was his relentless fight against corruption and his efforts to restore transparency in government. He implemented various reforms and initiatives to promote accountability, earning him the reputation of being a champion of clean and honest governance. President Magsaysay also prioritized social justice and sought to uplift the lives of the Filipino people, particularly those in rural areas. He implemented land reform programs to address the issues of landlessness and inequality, aiming to provide land to farmers and promote agricultural development. His commitment to agrarian reform and empowering the marginalized sectors of society earned him the admiration and support of the Filipino people. Beyond his policy accomplishments, President Magsaysay was admired for his humble and down-to-earth demeanor. He was a president who connected with the common people, often referred to as the man of the masses. His genuine concern for the welfare and aspirations of the Filipino people made him a beloved leader during his time and a revered figure in Philippine history. Tragically, President Magsaysay's presidency was cut short when he died in a plane crash shortly after taking off from Cebu on March 17, 1957. However, his legacy as a dedicated public servant, a fighter against corruption and a champion of social justice continues to inspire generations of Filipinos today. Summertime here in the Philippines, very, very hot, mid-30s. Forgot my hat today, so I'm ducking in and out of the shade. Now, the language, they speak Cebuano or Visayan here on the island of Cebu, but the national language is actually Tagalog. But there's quite a few different languages all over the Philippines. The southern part of the Philippines is still predominantly Muslim, and there's various different languages down there. So depending on where you are, there are different languages. And many people have Spanish names. Hundreds of years of the Spanish colonizing these islands. Most people do have certainly Spanish last names, and quite often still today, Spanish first names as well. So next time you bump into a Filipino, you can say a few words in Spanish. Hola, the number system, a few other words still used here in Spain, so in the Philippines. So yeah. Found another statue here of another revolutionary. This is Jose Rizal, but for this one, we're going to go back across to Coasty in Hong Kong, who's going to tell us a little bit about Jose Rizal and his story. Yes, thank you, Coasty. We are here in Hong Kong on the famous mid-levels escalator, over 800 meters long. I believe it's the longest outdoor escalator in the world. We're headed right near the top to find out where Jose Rizal used to live back in the 1890s. Jose Rizal was famous for being a sculptor, a poet, but probably most famous for his work as a writer. After his sisters and father were banished, he became somewhat of a revolutionary writer. Well, he was a pacifist and tried to do lots of these things through peaceful means. He was a very intelligent man, spent a lot of time in Europe, and after finishing there, he made his way back to Asia, stopping in Hong Kong. So it was here on Red Naxala Terrace number 2 that in December 1891, Jose Rizal was reunited with his family who had been banished from the Philippines. Now you're thinking, that's a strange name for a street, Red Naxala Terrace. Well, it's quite famous over here because it shouldn't actually read Red Naxala, it's actually Alexander backwards. And it's thought it reads Red Naxala because it was prisoners, illiterate prisoners, Chinese prisoners here who made the street signs back in the day, and they got it the wrong way around, and it was printed Red Naxala and has stayed Red Naxala ever since. So if you want to check it out, it's right here on the escalator. He lived here for about 6 months, and whilst he was an eye doctor down in Central, and one of his business cards is still around in a museum in Manila. Upon his return to Manila in June 1892, he formed the civic movement called La Liga Filipina. This advocated moderate social reforms through legal means. Remember, he was a pacifist and didn't want to do anything through force or through fighting. Rizal was banished for 4 years the following month, and then following the armed resistance starting with Bonifacio, he was arrested whilst in Spain, brought back to the Philippines, and after a short court-martial was executed by firing squad. Jose Rizal, very much revered as a nationalist hero in the Philippines, and hence why his statues are found all around the country today. Like this one in Cebu City. Right, Coastie, back to you in the Philippines. The architecture is really fascinating around here, but I don't actually know a lot about the architecture, so definitely know it's had a Spanish influence over the years, but all around the centre here of Cebu and across the Philippines you do have Spanish influence on all the buildings. Right across from City Hall we have one, if not the most famous building here in Cebu, and it's the building that holds the Cross of Magellan. The Cross of Magellan, the cross put down in 1521 by Ferdinand Magellan on behalf of the Spanish, and it really signifies, this building, the coming of Catholicism to these islands, and Catholicism is still prevalent right across the nation. And in fact we're here over the Easter period, so most of the museums are shut unfortunately, and there's lots of things being erected in memory of Jesus, and people will be celebrating public holidays all across the Philippines over the next few days. But let's head inside and have a little look at the Magellan's Cross. Now, the actual original cross from 1521 that Magellan put in the ground here is actually encased in this cross. People over the centuries chipped away at it, taking pieces thinking it would bring them good health and good luck. So it's now only a smaller cross what it used to be, but it is encased in this one here. And people from all around the Philippines come here, say a prayer, because really this is where Catholicism took off. On the roof above, we can see that there is a mural of the first baptism here that took place in 1521 in March, just a month before Magellan was killed here. Just a minute's walk from Magellan's Cross, we find this wonderful building, the Basilica de Santo Niño, Basilica of the Young Child. It's the oldest church here in Cebu, one of the oldest in the Philippines. Originally 1565, but has been rebuilt 4 times due to fire. Let's take a look inside and see what it's like. Look what we have behind me, another very old church. One would say they are, what's the word, Jason?
Ubiquitous.
Ubiquitous, you're right. And they are ubiquitous, as we know, all around here. Catholicism is still spread right across the Philippines, apart from the south, where it is still Muslim. And this church here, the cathedral, the municipal cathedral, was built in 1595. So not quite as old as the church we've just been in, but still a very, very old building, one of the oldest still here in the Philippines. It's the Yap San Diego house here, built in the late 17th century, one of the oldest buildings, residential buildings still around in the Philippines. Let's take a walk around. Obviously a very, very Christian household. Christian relics all around. I'm not sure if they've just been put in. As a result, I can't believe that the house could quite look like this back in the 17th century. Just past the cathedral, this little park here, we've got a statue of Raja Humabon, and he was the first chief that Magellan spoke to when he arrived in 1521. He actually baptized him into the Catholic faith. It was Humabon that told Magellan to go across to the island of Mactan, just opposite Cebu, to try and convert him or to fight him. Magellan did fight him, and that chief was Lapu-Lapu. And we'll find out more about the Battle of Mactan and Magellan's death in the next episode. But there he is, Humabon, a chieftain here in Cebu. In 1565, the streets of Cebu started to be mapped out by Legazpi, and this obelisk was put here in honor of Christopher Columbus, who they call Cristobal Colon, and this is the Colon obelisk. There we go, officially the oldest street in the Philippines. Right, let's head around the corner to the Cebu Monument, where we'll finish off today. And here we are, the heritage of Cebu. It's actually a tableau of all the things celebrating the history here in Cebu. We're going to leave it here at this point. It's very, very hot. The battery's low. We're overheating, both myself and the camera. So we'll see you next time on Coasty Explores, when we're going to find out about Ferdinand Magellan, his journey here to the Philippines, and his death at the hands of the chief Lapu-Lapu. See you next time.